Hey guys, in this video I want to look at the emissions trading scheme and its relationship with the goal of equity and income distribution. Now, as the final government goal, you've learnt, an equitable distribution of income doesn't mean that everyone has the same level of income. It means that everyone is able to lead a reasonable standard of living. And this is achieved through the avoidance of absolute poverty, but doesn't mean that relative poverty doesn't exist, because there may still be relative poverty in the community. So by living a reasonable standard of living means everyone has access to the necessities of survival. And so what we're going to do in this video is to look at the relationship with how the emissions trading scheme can impact this goal. Now, as we know, the emissions trading scheme is a cap and trade system whereby the government actually sells pollution permits. So you've got to buy these permits in order to pollute. Without these permits, you can't legally pollute. And so they're going to sell it at around $25 per ton, and that's the proposed price of these permits. So how will that impact income distribution? Obviously, this is not going to impact everyone evenly. Now, we're going to think of this cap and trade system, or these pollution permits, as an extra cost to business. So these are, in fact, I'm going to note here, an extra cost of production. And now with extra cost of production, we're going to link this back to this idea of cost inflation. And if you guys want a deeper analysis or a more thorough analysis on how the emissions trading scheme can increase or cause cost inflation in the short run, I'd encourage you guys to look at this the video on emissions trading scheme and cost inflation in this series of videos in this playlist. But for now, we're going to assume, or we know that an increase in cost of production actually would result in cost inflation. And so we're not going to look at this in terms of just the emissions trading scheme or any environmental policy. We're going to look at this in terms of how cost inflation can impact income distribution. Now, obviously, those on lower incomes will suffer. So lower income earners will suffer. And this is because they are less insulated from rises in prices. So for these businesses here, to maintain their profit margin, they're going to increase their price. And because this is due to an increase in cost of production, we call it cost inflation. And now, because lower income earners have less money, then obviously a rise in prices, therefore their purchasing power will decrease, and hence we refer to this as them being less insulated from rises in prices, because of this idea that they have a lower purchasing power. So as a result, we will see that higher income earners will not be as much or impacted as much as lower income earners. So how would the government actually counteract this problem that lower income earners will suffer? This would in fact, increase the gap between the rich and the poor, and therefore move away from this goal of equity income distribution. And although the goal doesn't specifically say that everyone's income should be equal, it does suggest that the income spread should not be too large, and this would actually hinder the goal of equity and income distribution, because this would actually widen the gap between the rich and the poor. So how does the government counteract this problem or solve this problem? So solutions. Well, with these carbon permits, the government actually earns a projected $11.5 billion in extra revenue. So with this extra revenue source coming from these carbon permits, they could do a number of things. Firstly, they're projected to increase welfare payments by around 2.5% in welfare payments. So this would help these people on lower incomes insulate themselves better against this rise or this temporary rise in prices. Secondly, what they're going to do is they're going to decrease certain excise taxes. And these excise taxes are usually placed on fuel, and fuel being highly reliant on coal or coal-powered electricity to produce, this would actually decrease the price of fuel and allow these people who require their cars to go to work or go places, that would save them some income there. And again, finally, because of this increase in revenue, they actually compensate high emissions businesses. Perhaps around or between 60 to 90% of the actual pollution permits. So they're going to offer these businesses a discounted price on these pollution permits because of their high reliance on emissions. Now, if they didn't do this, then obviously these businesses will struggle to maintain their production levels at their current cost, and therefore will tend to shed jobs. And when we talk about shedding jobs, they're actually moving from transfer. When they shed jobs, they move from factor to transfer payments. And when they move from factor transfer payments, we'll see that they have actually decreased their income levels and hence create a more inequitable distribution of income. So by compensating these high emissions businesses for the first few years, it allows them time to adjust to new methods of production and therefore minimize job losses. So as a whole, although the emissions trading scheme, without any government intervention, without any further government intervention I should say, can actually lead to a more inequitable distribution of income. With government intervention, or with these proposed solutions here, we will see that possibly, perhaps, in the long run, the income distribution in society will become more equitable.